It has been brought to our attention that depending on the platform that you listen to, you can no longer hear some of our previous episodes.
Some of our favorite episodes.
Some of the ones where people would reach out and say, hey, listen, I can't believe that you talked to insert whatever name here.
And honestly, it makes us a little sad that you can't go back in time and have a listen because the stories were really incredible.
We reference a lot of times, we had a chance to talk with so-and-so in the past. And if you can't go back, then it's kind of just, So we wanted to bring some of those guests, some of those former guests back into the spotlight.
We're going to call it like a rerun, I think.
A Why Me Project rerun.
Do you remember those?
I do. Back in the day, or you used to throw the tape into the VCR and, we're dating ourselves.
We are, but a rerun was the opportunity to rewatch one of your favorite episodes. Now everything's so accessible. Well, we thought it was.
Yeah, exactly. So without further ado,
here's your Why Me Project rerun.
This week we have our second coach of the podcast history, and this man is very passionate.
Yes, but not about volleyball, about basketball.
There you are. And if by the end of this, from what I gather, you don't want to go and run a marathon or shoot a jump shot, then we're probably doing this wrong.
Yeah, I think so.
So why don't we introduce our guest for this weekend? Gary Greeno, my friend, how are you?
Hey, guys, I'm doing great. How are you today?
We're doing good, thank you.
Gary, we like to ask the skill testing question because we never know where it's going to go. Who are you and where did you come from?
Well, for 28 years, I have been a high school math teacher and basketball coach. Nice. And if you were to have asked me that 7 or 8 years ago, it would have pretty much ended right there. About that time, God really started working on me, and he started speaking to me and saying, Gary, I have more for you. I didn't really know what that looked like. I was very content and satisfied and doing a good job with my teaching and coaching. I've been doing it for a long time. I kept hearing God say, Gary, I got more. You know, when you hear God speak, it's great, but I didn't have any clarity, and I didn't really know what he meant. And so that began kind of a journey for the next couple of years at trying to figure out, okay, God, what more do you have? And, you guys, I kept asking God, what do you want me to do? He kept coming back and saying, well, Gary, rather than asking, what do you want me to do, I want you to ask, what do you want me to be? So I started this process of really working on me on the inside. And over the course of the next couple of years, God led me to speaking. He led me to being an intern pastor at my church for almost a year. And then lately he's led me to write a book. So I'm really excited about where I'm at right now. I grew up the son of a preacher. My dad was a preacher. My granddad was a preacher. And my great-granddad was a preacher. And so I kind of have that heritage in me as well.
Where was your bigger passion? Was it, hey, I should become a pastor like Dad? Or, I really want to be involved in sports?
Oh, that's a great question. So when I was in college, you come to that point in college where you got to declare a major and you got to decide, okay, what are you going to do? And I really wanted to coach and be a teacher. I had a real longing to stay in sports. I played college basketball. But at the same time, Johnny, I had this pull towards ministry. I kept asking God, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to be a coach and teacher, or do you want me to be a pastor? I tell people all the time, I never had God come out with the lightning bolt and a loud voice and say, Gary, go this direction. I just kept following doors, and I said, God, I'm going to become a teacher and a coach, and if that's not what you want, you've got to let me know. So I really felt like that's where he was leading me. And it's crazy, 25 years later, I actually ended up being a pastor, and I do a lot of preaching and speaking in churches and mentoring families. And so I actually have been able to have kind of a pastor-shepherd role in a lot of areas of my life.
Did you ever feel pressure from your family to take the pastoral route over a teaching route?
No, my dad was great. He always said, Gary, you follow wherever your heart leads you, whatever you feel God is telling you to do. So I never did feel that pressure. But I did in the back of my mind know that I had 3 generations before me that were all pastors. Mm-hmm. So that kind of worked in there a little bit, but I never really felt pressure.
When did your love for basketball start?
Well, my dad taught me how to play when I was very small, and I fell in love with the game when I was little and had many driveway battles with my dad and growing up. And so I really fell in love at an early age. Interesting story, when I was in the 9th grade, I really hit my first why me moment, you could say, when I got cut from the basketball team. And basketball had been a part of my whole life. And I just knew that I was going to make the team. Like, the thought of me not making it never crossed my mind. Of course, when you're a freshman in high school and you're only 5'2" and 130 pounds, you don't really realize that you got some things going against you. But I got cut, and I was just absolutely devastated. I remember having to make a decision as to what I was going to do from here. If I was just going to give up and forget about it. I really, really wanted to play college basketball. I had to decide if I was going to give up on that dream or if I was going to come back the next year. And I got a lot of grit in me, and so I came back the next year. I made the team and actually ended up getting a college scholarship to play at a small college after high school.
So you go to college, you play in college, you become a teacher. Why coaching, though? What was it about the coaching that you love so much?
I love working with individuals and Johnny, just helping them achieve all that they can possibly achieve. And so I take that approach in the classroom with basketball, with church leadership, and basketball directly. I just love the game. I'm a big sports guy. My daughter's into tennis. I'm helping her tennis team, and I just love sports. But basketball was just that one thing that just kind of grabbed me, and I've always felt that you can use sports to teach so many life lessons. That's really kind of what grabbed me with basketball.
There are a lot of people who go through, we can call it a midlife crisis, or we can call it where they feel like they're being called somewhere else. You being a coach and a teacher for 28 years, how tough is it, the mind frame, even if God is prompting you to move on, to actually take that step forward?
I think the key is just constantly listening to God's voice and not getting distracted by the circumstances of life. As I've worked with a lot of people over the years and experienced difficulties in my own life, I see a lot of people who allow their circumstances to defeat them. And that's kind of what caught my attention with your Why Me podcast. There are so many people that have that victim mindset. And I decided a long time ago, I'm sure it was my upbringing with my parents and the way they raised me, but to never be a victim, but you can always rise above your circumstances. I remember my dad used to always say, your circumstances don't define who you are. They simply reveal who you are. And another way to put that is to grow through everything that you go through. And so I really feel like every adversity, every challenge that I have faced in my life, God wants to use that to make me better and to reach other people. So I think having that kind of internal blueprint or framework really helps me as I face every battle from day to day.
When you were in high school, did you think, yes, math and being a math teacher, that is the path that I want to take?
Well, I always knew I wanted to coach. I knew I had to teach something to be in education. And to be honest, I wanted to teach PE, and my actual degree is in PE. But my college advisor said, if all you can do is teach PE, you have a hard time getting a job. And I said, well, what should I teach? He said, well, nobody wants to teach math. And I said, well, I've always struggled in math. I was the kind of kid in high school, I got C's and D's. And, if I got a C plus, I was pretty happy with that. But I just always struggled, and I never really could grasp the concept. But I was just determined. I said, okay, well, if math is what's going to always get me a job, then I got to figure out how to do this. And I'll never forget my very first calculus test. I had to take calculus in college. I had to take calculus 1, Hollie, calculus 2, and calculus 3. 3 semesters. And I had no idea how I was going to pass those classes. I mean, I had to take all those remedial classes just to start the math program. And when I took my first calculus test, I was actually kind of excited because I'd worked so hard. I had studied. I was ready. The next day, the teacher's passing back the test. And, she passed them back. She kind of, was giving them to each student. And I get mine, and I was nervous but excited. And I grabbed it. And right at the top of the paper, real big circle that said 33%. I had failed that thing miserably, and I was devastated. I was just like, you got to be kidding me. And I had a buddy that was in that class that sat next to me. He took no notes. He just kind of sat there and watched the lectures. And, while I was scrambling every note, writing down every word, and my friend got like a 97%.
That's the worst.
And Oh, it was awful. And I remember saying to myself, I got to pass 3 semesters of this, and I can't even pass the first test. But again, I think in life you have those moments where you say, okay, what just happened? How am I going to get through this? And then you find a way to get it done. And whatever it takes, you're gonna figure out a way. And that's just always been my approach to things: is whatever it takes. Once I set my mind to it, I got to figure out how to get it done. And that professor and we became really close that semester.
Yeah.
Every moment of her office hours, I was in there, and I said, "Hey, you got to explain this to me again." I managed to do it. I passed, and so I think that really helps me as a teacher to help students who are like looking at me going, "Man, Mr. Greeno, I just don't get this." And I'm like, "I know, I got it, but we'll figure it out."
Mm-hmm.
You seem to have it all together. You have this career, you have this faith, you have this family, but then you allude to struggles and you allude to having trials. If you don't mind me asking, what was or what have been those struggles?
It's funny, when I speak, Johnny, sometimes I'll ask the audience, I'll say, how many of you are at a stage in your life where you've gone through things that you had no idea you would have to go through them? How many people do you think raise their hands? Everybody.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of has that chuckle, and especially people that are a little bit older in life, they look back and they're just like, amazed at what they've had to go through, that they had no idea that they would have to go through that. And I am the same way, and I think that's a very commonality of life. And I was married for 13 years, had 3 beautiful children, and then went through a really ugly divorce, and that was just crushing. I was, I think, 32 years old. I'm 51 now, and that was one of those moments where I was devastated. And it was one of those things where, growing up as a PK and being active in the church, it's one of those things where you never thought that would happen to you. And so I went through that, and that was a struggle, and being away from my kids when they were young, and then going through different coaching jobs. The coaching world's a funny world. You always hear about it in the pros and major colleges, but it kind of trickles down to even the high school and small college level. It's funny, you could be doing a great job, and then somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I want to make a change." And so I've had some coaching issues and with that, but you look at it with everything that happens in life, you just have to understand that there will be adversity. And in every adversity, there's always opportunity. And I've tried to be the kind of person that really takes that approach. And I try to follow the 90-second rule, Johnny. When something bad happens, I try to give myself 90 seconds to moan and complain and say, why me? But then after that, it's like I got to move forward. And I got to figure out how I'm going to get to the next step in my life, what I'm going to learn from this, and how I'm going to use this adversity to my advantage. I don't think I have it all together, but I know I'm making progress. And, I've had some adversities, and I'm going to have more.
You sound like such a confident individual. Was that a big part of just you and your personality, or was this something that you had to develop?
That's funny, Holly. I say that's funny because I was so shy growing up. So check this out. As I was a freshman in college, I had to give my first presentation in front of the class. Holly, I was so scared. I did not want to get up and speak. I did not want to have to talk in front of people. And, they say public speaking is like everyone's greatest fear, even more so than death. And that was me. And so I got up and my knees were shaking. My voice was quivering. I was supposed to give a 5-minute talk. I think it was about 30 seconds. And I got up, I sat down. I was so embarrassed. And so to answer your question, that's kind of been who I was growing up, just shy. But I think I learned that you have to have a sense of confidence as you go through life as a leader. And I've been a leader in the church world and coaching, of course, and with speaking. And if you don't have a sense of confidence, I don't think people are going to respect you. And I remember somebody told me a long time ago, they said, Gary, if you don't have confidence, fake it till you make it. Act as if you do have confidence. No one else is going to know the difference. Think about what a confident person looks like, and you take that on. If you act confident, you will become confident. And it's crazy how I have noticed that over the course of my life. And then I think when you have experiences with different things, you find out what works, what doesn't work. And so you do gain that natural sense of confidence. But, boy, no, Holly, I did not have it at the beginning.
Well, it's amazing to think of you as that freshman in college not being able to speak, and yet here you are speaking in front of crowds of people.
Yeah. And really it all comes down to your purpose. Understanding what I was created for is a huge thing. And as I said at the beginning of the interview, I knew it's at a point a few years ago, God was saying, Gary, I have more for you. And so I really feel like my purpose, Hollie, is to help as many people as possible, whether it's through my books or my speaking. And that's really my purpose. And so when you fall back on, okay, this is why I was created, this is what I have to do, you're able to overcome some of those fears and some of those, self-limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves. I see so many people with potential, and I'm sure you guys do too, that they have all this potential to be so much more than for what they're created to be, but they give in to their fear, and they give in to all the lies that Satan tries to feed us. And so my goal in life is to help as many people be all that God created them to be.
If you go back to the time when you and your ex-wife had decided that marriage was just not going to work anymore, did it change your perspective or your thoughts on marriage?
Not really. I mean, I believe that God said, hey, when I bring two people together, it's for life. And so I firmly believe that. It's a crazy world that we live in. More, I guess the stats are something like more than half the marriages that come together end up in divorce. And trying to understand the reality of life and what happens to people, and my belief in marriage and the sanctity of marriage and that relationship that God brings together, it's a difficult thing. And for me, God is a God of He's not wanting to condemn us, but He's wanting to redeem us, and He's wanting to justify us. And so things happen in life. Sometimes they happen because we brought them on. Sometimes we have no control over them. But I really believe that God wants to redeem us. And so when it comes to marriage, I'm trying to just constantly look forward and say, okay, God, marriage did not work out. And I was devastated. And I was on the floor of my apartment, face down, crying out to the Lord. But, He brought me through that. And He brought me a wonderful lady that I've been married to for almost 16 years. And we have 2 kids. And life isn't perfect by any means. I don't think any marriage is ever perfect, but we've learned how to figure it out and make it work. And so I believe in marriage. I believe in the family. If anything, Johnny, my view of marriage and what God wants for families has been strengthened because of everything that I've gone through.
You had said that when you originally had gotten divorced, you didn't have a chance to be around your kids all the time. Did that then change you as a father, and then maybe even trying to make up for the times that you weren't there?
So my kids at that time were 5, 3, and 2, and that was really tough. And if anything, being away from them, Johnny, has made me realize that life is so short. I feel like I just snapped my fingers, and now, the years have passed, and my youngest from my first marriage is now 18. And I just want to value every moment. And now my 2 youngest are 15 and 14 with my wife, Dina. And so I just want to value time. I want to make the most of every opportunity. The book I wrote is called The Legacy Game Plan, 4 Keys to Living Intentionally. And I want to live every day on purpose. I don't want to just drift through life. I got to make the most of every moment. And so with my kids and with other parents and that I work with that have young kids, I just want to say you got to seize every moment, enjoy every moment, because you're going to blink and then they're going to be grown and gone.
I'm glad that you mentioned the book, because why did you write it? Or did you have that whole prompting of, I should really write it, but then you put it off and put it off and put it ooff? Like
a lot of people who want to write a book, I did put it off. Well, I mean, I started writing. I got about 5 book ideas, and all in different areas. But this book here, I put together. I had it almost done about a year ago, and life is busy. I'm coaching, I'm teaching, I'm raising a family, and trying to be a good husband and father, and so it just was kind of on the back burner. About 4 or 5 months ago, I just said, I got to get this done. This is a message that I believe people need to hear about understanding your purpose and living out your purpose, and not ending up in your 50s and 60s looking back on your life going, what just happened? And, did I really make the most of my time? So I said to myself, I got to get this done, because I believe this is a message that people need to hear about the legacy that they're going to leave. Because, and here's the theme of my message in this book, is that the legacy that we leave is the legacy we're currently living out right now. And so that was just kind of my theme, is like, hey, I want to help people make the most of their time right now, so that when they are gone, the things that are said about them are the things that they would have wanted to be said about them.
When it comes to your legacy, what do you hope people think of when they think of Gary Greeno?
Well, for many years, I felt like I wanted people to say about me that Gary was a person who made a difference. Gary was somebody that made, and not just a difference on this earth, but an eternal difference. And really, that's my goal, is if I could help someone in their life now and help them get to heaven and help them make the most out of their life on earth, then I will have lived a good life. And so I want to try every day to get beyond myself. I mean, isn't it easy just to get so consumed with what we're doing in our little world and all the responsibilities that we have, not to minimize them because they're important, but I want to live outward focused. Not that I'm perfect at it by any means, but if people can look at my life when I'm gone and say, boy, Gary really made a difference in my life, then I'll be happy with that.
What has the response been from, say, the book or from the opportunities that you have to go out and speak?
Well, the book's been out for a couple of weeks, and I've had some great reviews, great responses. I'm not a very academic person, so it's not a high academic type book. Pretty simple language. I'm a simple guy, and so a lot of people have commented. They're like, "Wow, this is really easy to read," and I think they really appreciate the stories. And I'm a big story guy. I love analogies, and so the response there has been really, really good. And I think, Johnny, with my speaking, I try to make things practical. I mean, I'm just a normal guy. I don't have any kind of minister degree. You know, I'm just a guy who's lived life. I've got a regular job. I'm a teacher. I'm a coach. And so I feel like I understand what the average Christian is going through, who's trying to make the most out of life, who's trying to live out their purpose. But at the same time, man, we got temptations and we've got struggles and we got financial issues and we got issues with our kids and all of that. And so when I speak, I try to help people make the most out of their life and what they're going through, and the response is usually pretty good.
Before we wrap up, we want to throw you a couple curveballs. I know it's a different sport than basketball, but that's the only analogy I can come up with at this time.
I use it too.
You've coached for so long. Do you actually know what your coaching record was?
I don't know. I know there's a guy who at the school where I'm at. He added it all up, but I don't really know. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure it's out there online somewhere, but yeah, I'm not sure.
What about, is there any specific championships or games that you remember the most?
Well, I just wrapped up 13 seasons at my current school, and we won eight league championships in the 13 seasons, and so I think that's pretty cool, to win a league championship. I think, though, Johnny, the games that stand out the most are the games that we've been behind. And I can think of one particular game a couple of years ago. We were down by 22 points at halftime. And in a high school basketball game, the game's only 32 minutes. So you have 16 minutes in the second half to come back. And would you know that we came back and we had this big rally and won the game. And I think games like that really stand out because sports are so emotional. And when a kid is 16, 17 years old, sports is their life, especially high school basketball. I mean, these kids, they live, eat, and breathe their sport, and that's what they live for. And so to see the emotion and the highs and the lows and the camaraderie and the bonding that happens, that's really special. But I'll tell you this, the thing that means the most to me is when I have players that come back, and, now coaching 28 years, I feel like I'm getting old because now my players now have kids, and it's crazy. But the thing that means the most to me is when the kids come back, now they're grown, and they'll say, wow, Coach, I really learned a lot from you. And one of my sayings is I have the saying about the two most important things for a basketball player at our school is the ability to listen and attention to detail. And those are two themes that I've always preached over the years, ability to listen and attention to detail. And, I'll have kids come back and say, hey, I've got this team I'm working with at work, and Coach, I told them here's the two most important things I want from them in the job working for me. And so things like that mean a lot because wins and losses are great, but really making an impact on kids when they're young and so impressionable that stays with them for the rest of their life, that's so important. I played sports all my life, as I said, and I can remember things that my my coaches said in the 4th grade, in the 7th grade, in the 10th grade. I can remember a little sentence that they said that they probably have no idea that they said this, but it stuck with me for 30 years. The magnitude and the weight of that is so heavy. I try to just be cautious with what I say and remember how impressionable these kids are. But when I do say something or impact their life in a way, and they come back later on and tell me what that meant to them, that means more to me than anything.
I so appreciate that you said that, because those who know me may not know that I played basketball in high school too. I'm like 5'2", super
Oh, you're
short.
kidding? That's awesome.
But yeah, what the coaches say really do have a lot of weight. So when you reflect back on when you played, what was one major lesson that you learned in basketball that you applied to life?
I think one of the biggest things is discipline and going after a goal. And let me just unpack that real quick if I can. Going after a goal is really important, because I see a lot of people who have a goal. They want to win. They want to make the team. They want to be a starter, but they're not really willing to put in the work. They don't always have the whatever it takes attitude or mindset. And so I learned early on that if I want something, if I really want it, I have to be willing to do whatever it takes. And I feel like in this day and age with the generation coming up, that so many are not really willing to do whatever it takes to pay any price. To me, being successful in business, being successful as a husband, as a father, being the Christian that God wants you to be, you have to be willing to pay whatever price it is and be able to sacrifice. And so that's a lesson that I learned early on. And then along with that is Hollie, just the value of discipline and self-discipline. One of my mentors, Coach John Wood, who I had a chance to interact with a couple of times, was amazing. And he always said, discipline yourself and others won't have to. And self-discipline to me is huge. And I always teach that discipline is 3 things. It's doing what you have to do, when you have to do it, whether you feel like it or not. And we live in a world where everybody just wants to do what they feel like doing. I tell young people all the time, if you only do what you feel like doing, you're not going to do much. And so being able to get beyond how we feel and do those things that we have to do at the moment we have to do it is very, very foundational to success. And then when you combine that with doing whatever it takes and having that mindset, to me, that person is unstoppable. So I learned those early on. Of course, I've been relearning them and trying to apply them every day and expand on that as I have grown and matured. But those are some very important life lessons.
The Legacy Game Plan is available at Amazon or at GaryGreeno.com. You could check out at Coach Greeno on social media. Coach, we appreciate you taking some time and doing this with us.
Thank you so much, Johnny. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Hollie.